Danger! We are on a collision course.
But don't just stand there. Do something. Reverse thrust. Full power.
In 1965, while the real world was still holding its breath, waiting for humanity's first step onto the moon, the Robinson family made their own leap into the unknown on television. They blasted into space aboard the flying saucer called Jupiter 2, carrying with them dreams of a new planet and heart-stopping adventures. 60 years have passed. One generation grew up, then grew old. Some slipped away quietly, in heartbreaking solitude inside unfamiliar apartments, their deaths discovered only after long days of silence. A few disappeared from Hollywood altogether, shedding the bright glare of fame for destinations no one would have expected. And some fought silently against obscurity and illness for years, even though they were the true souls behind the series' most unforgettable icons. Let's reopen the files of the Lost in Space cast in 2026 and see how, sometimes, real life can be harsher and more unpredictable than even the most distant galaxies. 1. Guy Williams, Professor John Robinson. You probably still remember the image of Guy Williams boarding the Jupiter 2 at age 41 in 1965, at the height of his fame from his legendary role as Zorro. With calm authority and intelligence, he shaped Professor John Robinson into an immortal figure, the embodiment of the perfect father and the spiritual leader of his family amid the vastness of space. In the memories of millions, his figure standing in the cockpit, facing danger head-on, became the gold standard of protection and strength. However, when the series ended, Hollywood's spotlight gradually dimmed, and he faced the industry's unforgiving nature. In a surprising turn, Guy chose to leave the United States and settle in Argentina. There, he was welcomed like royalty and enjoyed a dignified retirement, supported by smart investments he had made in his youth. He became a national idol, with financial security strong enough to live comfortably without relying on the stage lights. But real-life tragedy is often crueler than fiction. In 1989, the world was shaken by painful news. Guy Williams died suddenly of a brain aneurysm in his Buenos Aires apartment. Sadly, the man who had been a pillar of strength for his on-screen family took his final breath in absolute solitude. His body was discovered only days later, after no one had seen the elegant professor appear. Even 37 years after his passing, Guy Williams remains a golden symbol of 20th century television. His legacy lives not only in archived footage, but in the enduring standard of the television father that generations of actors continue to measure themselves against. 2. June Lockhart, Maureen Robinson. If Guy Williams embodied authority, June Lockhart embodied steel wrapped in grace. Entering the series at age 40, she redefined what a woman could be on 1960s television. Maureen Robinson was not just a homemaker, she was a brilliant biochemist. Audiences were captivated by the way she used warmth to mend tensions aboard the Jupiter 2, becoming the irreplaceable heart of the family. In reality, long before getting lost in space, June had already been America's beloved mother in the legendary series Lassie. But what set her apart from her co-stars was her astonishing endurance. For decades afterward, she never truly retired. From appearances in modern television productions to serving as an honorary spokesperson for NASA, June built a career spanning more than 70 years, a milestone few Hollywood artists could ever reach. In an industry known for volatility and ruthless turnover, June Lockhart chose to defeat time. While her fellow cast members gradually passed on, she remained standing as a living witness to history, keeping the flame of Lost in Space burning brightly for 6 decades. We said goodbye to her in 2025, after she completed a remarkable 100-year journey on Earth. At 100 years old, she passed away surrounded by family and honoured by the entire film industry. The greatest wealth she left behind was not just financial success from decades of hard work, but the inspiration of a life fully devoted to her craft. 3. Mark Goddard, Don West. Aboard the Jupiter 2, I vividly remember the man practical and courageous enough to confront danger head-on. Don West, portrayed by Mark Goddard at just 29 years old. With his rugged charm and steady gaze, Mark turned Don West into a powerful voice of reason, a fearless pilot anyone would want at their side when facing alien monsters. But when the space adventure ended, Mark Goddard realised Hollywood could be just as unforgiving as outer space. After decades of struggling with smaller roles and seeing his career slow down, he made a life-changing decision. Rather than clinging to fading fame, Mark left Hollywood to become a teacher. He returned to school, earned a master's degree, and devoted more than 20 years to teaching children with special needs. The man who once piloted the most advanced spacecraft on television now dedicated himself to guiding vulnerable young minds, helping them find their direction in life. Mark Goddard passed away in 2023 at the age of 87. Yet his name lives on in the memories of the students he uplifted. He proved that sometimes helping a child stand firmly on their own feet is far greater than steering a starship across the galaxy. 4. Bill Mumie, Will Robinson. Before Lost in Space ever aired, Bill Mumie was just an 11-year-old boy stepping aboard the Jupiter 2 to become Will Robinson, a child prodigy with an extraordinary mind. In the memories of millions, Will was more than just a kid. He was the family's hope, the robot's closest companion, and the one who always heard the iconic warning whenever danger approached. Danger, Will Robinson. Bill Mumie brought a natural, intelligent performance to the role, helping make Will one of the most influential child characters in television history. Yet the shadow of early fame has haunted Hollywood for decades. Too many child stars have spiraled into addiction, scandal, or obscurity once they grew up. But Bill Mumie carved out one of the rarest outcomes: remarkable stability. Instead of collapsing under temptation, he used Lost in Space as a foundation for an astonishingly versatile career. He went on to achieve continued success as Lennier in the science fiction series Babylon 5, while also becoming an accomplished musician, comic book writer, and respected voice actor. Bill proved that early fame does not have to be a full stop. It can be a launching pad for those with resilience and discipline. Now, at 72 years old, Bill Mumie remains active, energetic, and warmly embraced at pop culture conventions, where he is welcomed as a respected elder statesman. His million-dollar fortune did not come from a lucky break, but from more than 60 years of steady, dedicated artistic work. In 2026, Bill Mumie is a content man, maintaining close relationships with the remaining members of the Robinson family and still smiling whenever fans lovingly repeat that famous word, danger. 5. Jonathan Harris, Dr. Zachary Smith. No one could have predicted that a character originally written as a sabotaging villain would become the very soul that saved the series. Jonathan Harris took on the role at age 51, already a seasoned performer. At first, Dr. Smith was conceived as a treacherous antagonist meant to be written out early. But through his cunning wit and delightfully exaggerated performance, Jonathan Harris transformed the cowardly, selfish doctor into a strangely charming and hilarious figure. He personally revised dialogue, adding eloquent, educated insults aimed at the robot and gradually turning himself into the centre of attention. It is fair to say that Jonathan Harris revitalised the show when it risked becoming stale. His flamboyant delivery and aristocratic tone gave Lost in Space much of its enduring personality. After the series ended, Jonathan did not chase action roles. Instead, he became the king of fan conventions and a distinguished voice actor, thanks to his unmistakable cultured voice. He cherished Dr. Smith so deeply that he would spend hours signing autographs and speaking with fans. His life, however, closed on a note of quiet sorrow. In 2002, Jonathan Harris passed away from complications related to a blood clot, just 3 days before his 88th birthday. A long journey was about to reach another milestone, and then suddenly stopped. Nearly 25 years later, his portrayal remains the most remembered character of the entire series. Though he never became a major film superstar, he secured something perhaps more enduring: cult icon status in science fiction television history.
When you look at the show, there are times when we're biting our lips from laughing. I'm trying not to laugh, It was a perfect time for a show like Lost in Space.
6. Marta, Kristen, Judy Robinson. In 1965, as Hollywood searched for fresh faces for the new space age, Marta Kristen appeared like a breath of fresh air at just 20 years old. With her classic beauty and hopeful eyes, she embodied the perfect sci-fi ingenue of the 1960s. When she stepped aboard the Jupiter 2, she carried a youthful belief that the universe was wide open, and that Judy Robinson would be her launchpad to A-list stardom. Reality, however, delivered a bitter twist. As the series shifted toward a lighter, more comedic tone, the focus increasingly centered on the trio of Dr. Smith, Will, and the robot. Judy's role was gradually pushed to the margins. Her screen time was reduced to the point where she nearly became a decorative presence rather than a driving character. Hollywood did not keep its promise. The role Marta once believed would be her beginning quietly became her ending, the most iconic but ultimately singular highlight of her career. After the show concluded, Marta did not land any major breakthrough roles. She transitioned into modelling, writing children's books, and attending fan conventions to preserve her connection to the series' legacy. As of 2026, at 79 years old, Marta lives a quiet and private life. She does not possess a massive fortune. Most of her income continues to come from appearances and projects tied to the enduring legacy of Lost in Space. Judy Robinson once symbolised hope for a radiant future among the stars. But for Marta Kristen, that universe ultimately became the place where her brightest youthful dreams were gently and permanently confined. 7. Bob May, the man inside the steel shell. When Bob May accepted the role of the robot at age 31, he never imagined that his face would never appear on screen. He was the one who physically operated, moved, and brought life to the robot alongside the Robinson family. For 3 seasons, Bob endured suffocating heat and extreme confinement inside the heavy metal suit, executing precise movements to give soul to what would otherwise have been an inanimate machine. Yet Bob May's tragedy was cruel anonymity. After the show ended, while his co-stars became recognisable celebrities, his name was largely overshadowed by the voice actor. The most painful chapter of his life was a decades-long struggle simply to be acknowledged, to have people recognise that behind the robot's graceful gestures was a real human being of flesh and blood. He did not receive wealth or major endorsement deals. Instead, he lived a modest life, far from material riches, and passed away quietly in 2009. By 2025, long overdue justice finally arrived. In restored documentaries and anniversary retrospectives marking the show's 60th year, Bob May's name was placed in its rightful position. Fans now clearly understand who sweated inside that steel shell. Though he is no longer here, the global Lost in Space community continues to remind one another. Without Bob May, the robot would have been nothing more than scrap metal. 8. Angela Cartwright, Penny Robinson. Do you remember the sensitive, animal-loving little girl named Penny Robinson? At just 12 years old, Angela Cartwright captured audiences' hearts with her innocence and natural talent. Before Lost in Space, she had already achieved immense fame in The Sound of Music, making Penny Robinson feel like a bridge into an even wider universe of stardom. Yet instead of clinging to the often turbulent world of acting as she grew older, Angela made an inspiring decision. She stepped away from the spotlight to pursue her passion for photography and visual arts. Her post-Lost in Space career unfolded not on television screens, but in art galleries and acclaimed photography books. She proved that a former child star can find genuine happiness by answering a different creative calling. Angela built her own artistic empire, from handcrafted art businesses to publishing projects, generating steady income and financial stability without relying solely on past fame. Now, at 72, Angela Cartwright is a true artist, serene, confident and proud. She remains close to her little brother, Bill Mumie, and the two often share cherished memories of their time aboard the Jupiter 2. In 2026, she is recognised not merely as Little Penny, but as a successful woman who shaped her own destiny. Penny once dreamed of distant worlds beyond the stars, and in real life, Angela created a radiant, artistic universe entirely her own. 9. Dick Tufeld, the voice of the robot. At age 40, Dick Tufeld gave the world one of the most iconic sounds in television history. Though he was not physically present on set, his warm yet mechanical voice infused the robot with emotional depth. The robot's voice in Lost in Space became a pop culture legacy, echoing through American life and far beyond for 6 decades. After the series' success, Dick Tufeld continued a steady voice acting career. Even long after the original show ended, his voice was sought after again for the 1998 feature film adaptation and numerous video games. He became the singular sonic thread preserving the robot's identity across generations. His stable career allowed him to enjoy a comfortable life and respected standing in the entertainment industry until his passing in 2012. 60 years later, his voice has even been digitally recreated, with his family's permission, to guide visitors at science fiction museums. He may no longer be here, but his frequency endures. His greatest legacy was transforming a simple line into part of modern language itself. From 1965 to 2026, the journey of the Lost in Space cast is not merely a chapter in television history. It is a symphony of real human lives. Looking back, we realise that while outer space may have been fiction, the triumphs and hardships they experienced were entirely real. The Jupiter 2 may now be covered in the dust of time, but the people aboard it left legacies that cannot fade. Some departed quietly, some remained in glory, yet together they formed a family whose bond of affection proved stronger than any adversity. Which member of the Robinson family's story moved you the most? Leave a comment below and share your memories of this classic series. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future explorations into the lives of other legendary casts.